Drill Sergeant. Drill number 6. There's nothing new under the sun. Making jewels. Another nugget for a fiery trial. Again, I say nothing new under the sun. It is clear from history that innumerable masses of demon spirits were released to attack and victimize the Church of Jesus Christ in its infancy, in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd centuries. This idea is nothing new. Because we are the ones living in these contemporary times, it is natural for us to think that our problems are far worse than those of any preceding generation. But even with all of these present problems and the potential difficulties still to come, our problems today are really no greater than those of the preceding generations of believers who have gone before us. When the Church of Jesus Christ first emerged on the scene on the day of Pentecost, it was born into a world very similar to ours. Nations were in revolt, national boundaries were disappearing, violence in entertainment was popular, and godly morals in the Roman world were nearly non-existent. The Roman army was quickly conquering the entire civilized world of the day. Homelands were being seized, plundered, and occupied by this Roman army from Italy. The world was being united politically and economically by the prevailing government of Rome. And the occultic paganism of the hour was far worse than any historian could ever state. Satan used all of these things as a part of his plan to destroy the church before it could destroy him. Yet his plan to destroy the Church of Jesus Christ miserably failed. God had another plan. Rather than destroy the church arose in the power of the Spirit to meet the challenge, just as we shall rise in our own day to meet any challenge that the enemy would attempt to put before us. Equipped with the whole armor of God, Ephesians 6:10-18, these early believers lived victoriously for the Lord in the midst of the worst predicaments much worse than anyone I'm talking to at this moment has ever known. Satan buffeted the church with unimaginable torture and outward persecution, but he could not destroy her. The whole armor of God, which worked effectively for those early believers, is the same identical set of spiritual armor that the Church of Jesus Christ still possesses today. Just as those early Christians were fully equipped with the whole armor of God for the troubles of their day, we also have the whole armor of God to live victoriously for Jesus Christ during our day. This armor still works very effectively. The loin belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, and the lance of prayer and supplication are still vital, effective and powerful weapons for the body of Christ today. With these weapons of our warfare, 2 Corinthians 10:4, in hand, we are more than able to defeat any foe that would challenge our faith. The strongholds these early believers faced were real. They really knew what strongholds were all about. They lived in an environment of paganism, demonism, and idol worship to a measure which we cannot even fathom. They were forced to live with religious opposition, social opposition, and even political opposition. This opposition by the pagan Roman society was so bad that Christians were regularly attacked and physically assaulted by witches, by astrologers, and mediums. In fact, it was at such an event that Timothy, Paul's disciple, and the pastor of the Ephesian church was brutally murdered. Intense hatred for Christians grew so rapidly under the reign of Nero that they were burned to death at the Circus Maximus in Rome. They were eaten alive by wild beasts in the Colosseum. They were publicly mutilated to death by gladiators in the amphitheaters, and their gruesome, terrible, grotesque deaths provided the Romans with the most popular form of entertainment during that time. The violent deaths of believers became so popular that the Romans that it became necessary to expand the seating capacity of the Colosseum to 87,000 seats in order to accommodate the massive crowd that would assemble for a whole afternoon of Christian martyrdom. See, we don't know anything about that kind of stuff. Wild beasts would be released into a series of tunnels like passages, and then Christians were placed into these same passages to be hunted down by ferocious wild animals. They were chased by these hungry beasts until caught, and then they were eaten alive before 87,000 cheering people. At first, such murderous events only took place once a year, usually during the month of January, as a dedication to the gods. Not one god, but the gods with an S on it. However, during the demented rule of Nero, the number of such afternoons of entertainment at the Colosseum increased greatly. Nero used nearly any excuse he could muster together to see additional Christians die in the Colosseum. His birthday, his anniversary of becoming emperor, the anniversary of his predecessors' birthdays, his mother's birthday, perhaps a special religious day, or simply a holiday was enough reason for Nero to fill the Colosseum to the brim with spectators who would sit on the edge of their seats to watch Christians die in the Colosseum. The worth of Christians was so low in the Roman world that when the construction of the Appian Way, which was a road leading from Rome to southern Italy, it required the road workers to work into the night. The dead bodies of martyred Christians were strung on poles along the road and were set on fire like huge lanterns. In those burning light, the road workers could continue working and building. Demonic activity in Rome was rampant. All Roman emperors from this period consulted astrologers and occult priests for important decisions. These high-ranking mediums were considered to be so vital to the cause of government that they actually held official positions in the administration, and they were held in the highest esteem by the reigning emperor. In addition to these high-ranking occult spiritualists who held especially prominent positions in the government, there were hundreds of other lower-class occult priests on the payroll of Rome who served as priests for the official religion of Rome. There is no doubt that these official governmental witches, astrologers, soothsayers, and mediums must have influenced Nero's sentiments about God-fearing believers. There were other brands of religion besides the official religion of Rome. The city of Pergamos, the most famous of all Asian cities, and the official seat of the proconsul of Rome, was a city that was filled with idolatry and paganism. High up on a mountaintop, 800 feet above the city of Pergamos, there set a great altar to the goddess Athena. Directly in front of this idolatrous temple to Athena, and protruding out on a ledge that was visible to the entire city below, was yet another idolatrous statue. Glistening in the sunlight every afternoon was a huge polished marble altar that was built in the shape of a giant throne. This was the altar of Zeus. From every section of Pergamos, citizens could look upward and see the smoke of burning incense billowing out into the sky from this demonic altar. This is the reason that Jesus told the Pergamene believers, "I know where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is." Revelations 2 and 13. But wait, there's still more. In addition to this idolatrous worship of Athena and Zeus, the city of Pergamos was also the citadel of the cult of Asclepius. Asclepius, a demon spirit who took the outward form of a large serpent. The cult of Asclepius boasted that Asclepius, the serpent spirit, had power to heal the sick. The supernatural manifestations of this serpent spirit eventually became so well known that people traveled from all over the world in order to consult the priest of Asclepius, it's hard for me to say that word some days, and be healed. Massive altars to Asclepius were erected all over the city. And there were literally hundreds of mediums who were employed as priests in this dark, demonic cult. As for the morality of Rome, there was none. Even non-Christian historians and scholars agree that Nero carried on an active homosexual relationship with many of the men that were close to the imperial throne. Bisexuality was completely acceptable by the standards of the day. Nero was himself a married man when he was cavorting with men. Like the entertainment industry today, the theater was full of vulgarities and lewdness and was blatantly sensuous and sexual. It was common for sexual scenes to be fully acted out on stage in front of a carnal Roman audience. Female believers who refused to renounce their faith in Jesus Christ and who fell into the hands of Nero's government were often forced to work in Rome's perverted burlesque as a form of mental and spiritual persecution. Satan tried to destroy the Church of Jesus Christ at its inception, and we are certain that he will try to attack and victimize the church as we approach the coming of the Lord. He knows that if he is going to do damage to the plan of God, this is his last opportunity, and he must do this damage quickly. It is emphatically clear that the early church, just like the modern church of today, had to contend with many demonic attacks. But just as the early church arose in the power of the Spirit to meet the challenge, so we, equipped with the whole armor of God, will also conquer the world around us and will live victoriously for Jesus Christ in these last days. As the Apostle John told us, "For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith." 1 John 5 and 4. The spiritual condition of the world cannot possibly be any worse today than it was back then. Have any of your friends been burned at the stake recently? Have you recently seen any of your Christian friends eaten alive by wild, hungry beasts? Have you been imprisoned for your faith? Though spiritual opposition is as real today as it was then, it is not worse. This is the same lost world it has always been. And this lost world system is still ruled by the same prince of the power of the air that has always sought to dominate it. And our battles are the same battles that the church has been fighting since its infancy. Satan has always sought to destroy the church through his army of invisible, wicked, lawless spirits. This is not new at all, because the devil did this in the past. He should be no great surprise if he tried to do this again in these last days. But remember, this early attack upon the church miserably failed. The harder the devil hit the church, the faster the church of Jesus Christ grew and multiplied. If the devil does send forth a new army of innumerable wicked spirits against the church in these last days, as some have suggested, the church will once again grow, thrive, multiply, and we will overcome. Nothing new under the sun. Drill Sergeant. Another jewel.